Hello and a very warm welcome to the video abstract of the paper entitled Desistance A Utopian Perspective, co-authored by myself, Dr. David Patton, and also Professor Stephen Farrall. Thank you so much for showing your interest in the article, and it was a real privilege to be able to work on this particular project, inheriting the 34 male prisoners' diaries at the outset. Kind of really was an exciting prospect to read such personal material that kind of really details their journeys of desistance. And initially my intention when looking at the diaries was to explore the role of emotions in the desistance journey, but actually the more I coded the data, it was clear that there was more there, that wasn't the central dominant themes within the diaries that I was reading. And so traditionally in desistance, the role of hope is often highlighted throughout the literature, and positive notions of the desistance journey are highlighted, such as kind of generativity, kind of that notion of giving back and becoming a role model, both to family members and also to society, of giving back to their children, of becoming kind of responsible citizens, and really detailing that kind of identity transformation that is occurring from the old identity to the new identity, and the role of hope as being central to that transformative process. But also, I guess I was quite agitated by the consistent notion and focus on individualized narratives. And as I was reading the diaries, what kept coming back was that the personal is political. And so I knew that the writings were not just about the 43 males in the particular sample. So yes, they shared kind of common experiences, and common themes were very evident between them. Again, I didn't feel that what they were writing about just referred to them as a whole, but pointed to something more beyond them. And so it was when I read an article by Nugent and Schinkel that was writing about the pains of desistance, pains such as goal failure, the pain of hopelessness, the pain of stigma and rejection, and the diachronic self-control and the pain of isolation, that really helped me begin to understand the broader picture of what the men were trying to articulate. And so it was at this point that the tensions that I was observing within the literature of hopes on the one hand and pains on the other began to make sense. But also this deeper notion of, Nugent and Schinkel also said that desistance should point to something beyond, it should take us beyond the notion of desistance itself. And that really resonated. And it was when I came across the notion of utopia, which Levitas defines as the expression for the desire of a better way of living and of being. And that kind of mirroring really very nicely and very neatly the desistance process, that I knew that this framework allowed me therefore to develop a utopian lens of the literature, of the diaries that I was analysing. And so Stephen and I developed a utopian reading of the diaries, and we used them in kind of three ways primarily. So Levitas talks about the functions of utopia as firstly being one of critique. And so as we analyse the pains of desistance in the diaries, the pains of family breakdown and the pains of wanting to access once again mainstream society, the pains of kind of self-isolation that they would embark upon in order to try and maintain their desistance journey of avoiding places and people. They also spoke about the pains of kind of surveillance and exclusion and stigma and rejection, both from family members, from those in the community, but also in society in terms of the labour market, the education system, the housing system. And so the pains of desistance were a critique of where we are as a society. It was a critique of their own lives and their own relationships and their own communities that they lived in, but also as a critique, more broadly speaking, of where we are as a whole, as a collective, as a nation, in how we respond to those who are trying to reintegrate back into society. And so for us, the definition of desistance that we used is one of an ongoing process of personal and human development, which allows the person to flourish and allows them full participation within society once again. And what the respondents were writing about in their diaries was the fact that they felt and they anticipated that they weren't able to do that. So they highlighted the obstacles and the barriers. And so we kind of identified a number of pains within the article. But this kind of contrasted with the tensions of their hopes. And so a lot of their hopes were about reconciliation, about kind of becoming this new person and of repairing the relationships, of accessing the different parts of society. And that kind of the hopes that they had, the vision that they had created, not only of their own identity, of their new identity, but also of their new lifestyle that they wanted kind of post their prison sentence, really kind of articulated a utopian vision as compensation. So this vision was a compensation for what wasn't present in their lives at the moment. And that was the second function of Utopia that Levitas wrote about. And then thirdly, we kind of used their diaries as a stimulus for change. So not just as an expression of hope, but actually for it to be an embodiment of hope. That actually, when you read through their diaries, that in order for their personal hopes to come true, that what is required therefore is a complete radical restructuring of society. It's not just the need for reform of the criminal justice system and of institutions within society, but actually if the respondents' hopes are to become fulfilled in a meaningful way, then actually the society that is needed is a radical one that doesn't look in the same way as it does today. And so in this way we recognize that the diaries are a call to action. They are a call to mobilize change. And we therefore recognized that the diaries need to point to the communities and the society that is not in existence yet. And so if the tension between their hopes and their pains in essence provide an action plan, it highlights what we can do and what we should do. And our hope really is that we would allow the written diaries of the people in our sample to take us to this new society that they envision.